Welcome to cooking cheap, easy, and tasty meal. Today I am going to make crispy oatmeal cookies with cinnamon bits. I am showing all of the video so that you will know how much time and effort is involved doing it by hand. If you've watched my channel, one of the things you may realize is I like oatmeal cookies because I seem to have cooked oatmeal cookies several different ways. Tonight I'm going to use another recipe. Now this is an old recipe that I'm going to modify. It's from The Joy of Baking, which is one of my favorite cooking channels, but it's one that most of these recipes that I've seen are ones that I've used years ago, and they're pretty good. And since then, I have modified them a little bit. This one is going to be a little, I'm going to make it more typically the way they had it. I'm going to make a crispy oatmeal cookie, and the unique thing is I'm going to add, instead of raisins, instead of chocolate chips, instead of nuts, I'm going to add cinnamon chips that I made. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a cup of butter and kind of whip it up a little bit, which is really hard. I could use a mixer, but I want to try and do this completely in a bowl. So for those of you who don't have a mixer handy or who have the patience to do it in a bowl, you can do it the same way I'm doing it and end up with pretty much the same product at the end. So that's pretty good. I'm satisfied with that. The next thing we want to do is add a cup of granulated sugar. This is 1/2 cup, and another 1/2 cup. Now that is golden granulated sugar, which is basically regular white sugar that has a little bit of molasses in it. So it gives it a little different flavor, and it adds warmth to the flavor. I don't know, depth. How about depth? A little depth to the flavor. It's like brown sugar, but it adds just a little bit of a flavor change to the sugar. And to the cookie. You're going to have to be a lot more patient if you're going to do this without using a mixer. I'm going to just stir this up a little bit, and then we'll use that again in a minute. Just like in a mixer, one of our objectives is to get the butter and the sugar really mixed in well together. Now, most recipes want you to get the butter and the sugar smooth. I'm not as concerned about that in these cookies. I think by the time we finish mixing them, they'll be smooth enough, but I do think you want to mix it pretty thoroughly. To make sure the butter and the sugar are pretty well mixed. Now the next thing we want is 2/3 of a cup of light brown sugar. And we're going to do 2/3 of a cup packed. That makes it pretty easy. Just press it up against the side and you get a packed 1/3 of a cup, and I added 2 of them. Again, if you have a stand mixer or a mixer, this is easier with that, but you can do it by hand if you're just a little patient and take a little time to mix it. Now, next we're going to add our vanilla extract. I'm going to add about a teaspoon. I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to, it's probably 2 teaspoons, but it's enough. It will not hurt it. But you can probably get by with just a teaspoon. And I'm going to add a teaspoon of cinnamon, with a rounded teaspoon, and a little bit of, I'm going to use golden syrup. I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of golden syrup. 1, 2. You could use honey, whatever your preference is. I like golden syrup. It adds a different buttery flavor to the mixture. I like it better than honey, but I like honey also. To work on that. Okay. Get that mixed in a little bit. Now we want 2 eggs. I'm going to put the 2 eggs in here and whip them a little bit. Oops, that's all right. Get that out. I'll use this to help me get that off. Okay, we've got most of it out. So I'll put that aside, and I'll pour that in here. Make sure I get all of it, and I'll mix this up. Okay, now we've got a nice mixture. We're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, which I'm going to go ahead and mix up now. Get that in the overall mixture. And then we're going to add 2 cups of flour. That's a 1/2 cup. Go ahead and mix that in. Oops. Oh well. That's the problem with doing it by hand. You tend to be a little messier. At least I do. Okay, that's a 1/2 cup. Another 1/2 cup. Just roll it over the mixture, get it under. Okay, another 1/2 cup. Okay, and now our final half cup of flour. Now I'm not being overly accurate, but I'm sure I'm getting fairly close to the correct amount. It's I'm not scraping the top off and all that. I'm just getting close to a full half cup each time. So I'm sure it's going to be enough. If you're concerned about it, you can level the cup and make sure you're getting exactly the right amount in. But this is going to be close enough one way or the other to do the job. Most of these kind of cookies that are a little heavier, you can be a little more flexible when you're making them. They're not going to fall apart. Now there are cookies you could make that are really fine, and they could be very difficult in that respect. They could require you to be a lot more specific, but this is not one of those. Oatmeal cookies are pretty sturdy. They've got simple ingredients, and they come together fairly easily. Now, we're going to add 1.5 cups of rolled oats. One of the unusual things we're going to add is Rice Krispies. So, first thing we're going to do is add the rolled oats. 1.5 cups of rolled oats. There's half a cup. Same process as with the flour, but it's a little easier because it's a little thicker mixture, the rolled oats themselves are. Another half cup. But it does get harder to mix, so be aware. If you haven't got strength in your arms, that may make the decision about whether you use a spoon or a mixer. And finally, the last half cup. And these are Quaker old-fashioned whole grain oats. These are not steel-cut oats. These are regular oats, regular oatmeal, not instant. This is the kind that you have to cook. If you use instant oatmeal, it's chopped up, it can change the texture considerably. Finally, well, almost finally, we're going to add, for crispiness, we're going to add 1.5 cups of Rice Krispies. And that will give us the crispness that we want. And these are plain old Kellogg's Rice Krispies. And before we finish mixing that up, we're going to add, now these are cinnamon chips I made and I put in the freezer because I want them to maintain as much integrity as possible and be as solid as possible. And I'm going to add the whole batch to the mixture. Now, if they work the way I hope, they're going to melt into the cookie and give it a nice, crunchy cinnamon flavor. In the past, when I've done this with other things, chocolate chips and things like that, it worked. I tried a brand of cinnamon crisps. They just didn't have enough cinnamon flavor. These cinnamon chips were made with a really spicy cinnamon, and therefore I'm hoping that the cinnamon will carry on into the mixture and make these cookies such that when you bite into a cinnamon chip or the cookie, you're going to get a really nice, intense cinnamony flavor, which I think goes really well with oatmeal cookies. If you notice, this is really getting to be a thick mixture. When you've got oatmeal, you've got flour, and you've got Rice Krispies in here. So you just want to turn them over, do what you can to get it mixed as well as you can. It's the same problem as when you add raisins or something at this point, just getting everything mixed together. Now this same recipe, you could put chocolate chips in at this point, butterscotch chips, pecans, walnuts, whatever you like. And if you want something other than the cinnamon chips. A lot of people like raisins, a lot of people like walnuts, pecans, chocolate chips. Those are all certainly excellent additions to these cookies. Now, the other recipes I have on the channel are completely different kinds of oatmeal cookies. Some of them most of them are chewy. This is a crisp one, and I haven't made one of those in a while. So I'd like to try making a crisp version. So I'm gonna get everything together so I can start putting the cookies out to be cooked. Okay, this is a 1.5 inch cookie scoop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it with a little Pam or spray oil. I don't know which I probably will use that to help keep it from sticking. I may have to do that every now and then. And I'm gonna take about 1 scoop at a time. And these are going to spread a little bit, so you need to leave them with a little bit of room. So I'm going to make 6 at a time. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press them down a little bit when I get them out here to help them spread. I'm going to put them in a 375-degree oven, and I'm going to cook them I'm going to start with 10 to 12 minutes, but I want them crispy, so I'm going to probably cook them a little longer. We'll see how they do, and we'll estimate from there. Okay, the first batch of cookies are out. They came out, they're really nice. They did become fairly thin. When they have time to cool all the way, they're going to become crispy. They're already pretty well solid. And if you notice the chips, you can see the dark spots. Those, instead of chocolate, those are cinnamon, Saigon cinnamon chips, which I made. So I expect these cookies to taste pretty good, but they are actually as thin as you would like if you want a crispy oatmeal cookie. So I'm going to finish cooking the rest of these, and we're going to try them. I'm sure they're going to be as good as I expect, but I want to give them plenty of time to become crispy. Okay, I ended up cooking these a little longer. They're still a little chewy. I cooked them about 14 minutes. I think they're probably going to need 15 minutes and a little more time to cool. They're not as crisp as I'd like. They're crisp on the outside and chewy on the inside, but they definitely have a good cinnamon flavor. When you get a bite of one of the cinnamon chips, you definitely get a bite of cinnamon. So I'm going to try this one and see what it tastes like. It's pretty crunchy. Even though it broke, it felt like it was a little springy, chewy. It really bites crisp. So it came out like I want. I do think if they sit for a little longer, they're going to be more crisp. The same recipe could be used with any other number of things. I will put in information about how to make cinnamon chips. It's a fairly easy process. You just basically mix it together and roll it out and put it in the oven for a while and then break them up into chips. But I'll put that information in there. Anyway, nice cookie. Hope you enjoy it. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and give us a like. Thank you.